Welcome to the first module for the Anchor Writing Framework course. I'm Doctora Aurora Chang, and I am so excited that you're here because we're building a community based on impactful writing, fierce authors, and based on forwarding social justice. This is just such an honor for me to be able to even offer this to you. And in the 30 years that I've been in education, one of my big dreams has been to be able to share my love and craft of writing to uplift others and really leverage that authorial capital to do things for the common good. So, my main intention and hope is that you really get out of this what you're meant to get out of it. And I don't know what that is. You may not even know what that is until you get further into the course. And so I ask that you stay open, suspend judgment. And even if you're doubtful when you're watching these modules of whether this strategy will work or that strategy will work, just try them on for size and let's see what happens. Let's approach this with a spirit of experimentation and as a learner, as if you were a brand new learner starting out. I mean, think of yourself in kindergarten or whenever you started formal schooling and what that was like in terms of the magic of newness, the magic of learning, the magic of building new relationships. So, again, welcome. However you're feeling today, I absolutely say come as you are and come back whenever you need some inspiration and a bit of writing guidance. So let's get started. Let me tell you a little bit about me and who I am and how I ended up doing what I'm doing. My name again is Doctora Aurora Chang. Dora, D-R-A period, stands for doctor in Spanish, and I use it intentionally because it really highlights my gender identity, my cultural background, and my first language, which is Spanish, is my preferred greeting, but you can also call me Aurora, Dre, Dr. Chang, Doctora Chang, Doctora Aurora. There's so many combinations. I am the CEO and the founder of Aurora Chang Consulting, LLC, and I have been a full-time academic entrepreneur since the summer of 2023. I like to describe myself as a recovering academic, meaning that I suffered a lot of trauma from being an academic of color, being multiracial, identifying as queer, and just because of how I show up in spaces, being in academia was both liberating in some ways, also very insular and oppressive in others. And I'm sure some of you can relate, and certainly we can talk about this much, much more. I am also a former associate professor of higher education. I was an assistant professor, educational studies and curriculum instruction. I've been a department chair of various programs, and my last institutional job was as the director of faculty development at George Mason University. So I've been in this education business for about 30 years now. Started out as a high school teacher and have had, 9 lives minimum since then. So I have an eclectic background and I will always be a proud eclectic creative. I'm also the author of 2 academic books, working on my third, which will not be academic, and 30 plus peer reviewed articles, book chapters and creative works. So that's all to say, I'm a writer, I'm a scholar, I'm an author, I'm an expert in writing. I'm also a multiple six-figure academic entrepreneur. And I share that to say that I didn't get to six figures for nothing. I know what I do well. I know how to engage folks in their most meaningful writing pursuits. And folks come to me because they know that they are going to get a transformative experience when we are working side by side. I'm also not afraid to take risks. If I do things and they're not perfect, I still put them out there because perfectionism is really the enemy of progress. And so I've tried things, things have failed, but that's how you learn where your zone of genius is. And so my mission is to help you see yourself the way that I see you. And I don't need to know you to know that you are a brilliant writer and human being. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been attracted to this community or to this course. So now you know a little bit about me. We're going to dig in to what this course is all about and what you can expect. Let's just get straight into the heart of the matter. What is the anchor writing framework and how did I develop it? So, over the past 30 years as an instructor and as a scholar and as a writing expert, I have identified really six key components to advance your writing and, more importantly, make you feel more confident and, dare I say, convicted about what you are writing about and who you're writing for. So the A in Anchor stands for acknowledging and naming your block. N stands for nurturing your ideas. C is for creating a plan, everyone's least favorite part of writing, but stay with me. H stands for harnessing momentum. O stands for overcoming perfectionism. And R stands for reflect and revise. These six components are not something you need to follow in that particular order. In fact, I encourage you to use each of these whenever the moment strikes, whenever you feel like you're stuck, or the minute you start hearing that inner critic saying things to you like, no one's ever going to read this. What I'm writing doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm spending hours sitting here in front of the computer and I've accomplished nothing. Why did I decide to do this for a living? So, believe me, I've been there. I've said all of those things to myself. And yet, I've published two books and over 30 articles, chapters, and pieces of art. This framework is critical. These are the six components that I have now explicitly understood as my process because many of us, and you may connect with this, have no idea what our writing process is. When I ask clients, what is your writing process? What is your writing practice? It's like a mystery because A, we've never sat down to reflect on it. And B, the way that we write is so conditioned into both our muscle memory and our intellectual cognitive process that it feels quote unquote natural, meaning that it's hard to explain because it's something that is innately embedded in you from the time you started reading and being introduced to language to now as a professional, as an academic, as an artist, as a scholar. And so part of the whole purpose of creating this anchor writing framework is to really identify those things that are implicit. This is really the hidden curriculum of my writing process. And what I am giving to you here is that process that I've really clung to, depended on, and based my writing success on. And so, as you'll see, a lot of these things have to do with being very intentional and, more importantly, mindful of where you are. What does it mean to be mindful? It means the ability to pause. I'm going to say that again. Being mindful is the ability to pause. And then taking it one step further and really observing what is happening as if you were outside of your body looking in. You can't acknowledge and name your block without being mindful, without stopping and saying, hey, my block is that I keep saying these horrible things to myself, my inner critic, and I can't move forward. The only way to get there is to stop. Otherwise, it just keeps on going. And by the time you know it, you're feeling terrible about yourself. You haven't been able to write. You're showing up to spaces with an inferiority complex. You get what I'm saying? You can't nurture your ideas without being mindful. You definitely can't be creating a plan if you're not mindful. Harnessing momentum, you have to be mindful enough to know that you're moving in a certain direction. I think a lot of our writing issues and, might I say, life issues have to do with the fact that we just keep on going without stopping, without pausing, without breathing. Literally, when was the last time you heard yourself take an intentional breath? In fact, let's do that right now. And just feeling what it's like to be in our own bodies. Overcoming perfectionism definitely requires mindfulness because perfectionism is that thing that keeps telling you you're not good enough, this is not good enough, this writing is not good enough. If you don't stop saying that in your head, and even more, believing that this is going to be a rough road, and I don't want that for you. Finally, reflecting and revising. Reflecting in writing is really about stepping back. Not even, I would say it's not even about thinking about your writing. It's about reflecting on what the real value is in everyday life. So adjusting yourself, realigning your values with what you're doing. And then when you've had that rest, right? When you're resisting the grind, then you're able to come back to your writing with a compassionate approach to revising. So that's the overview of the anchor writing framework. And next, we're going to talk about the purpose and the why. Let's talk about the purpose and the goals of the anchor writing framework course. I think it's really important for us to go into this with a lot of intention and soul. You've taken courses where they've just sort of been superficial or heartless. This is not that course. As much as you can be present, for each module, I also understand you have a bunch of things going on. So you might be listening to this in your car, or you might be listening to it while you're doing dishes. And frankly, that's totally okay with me as long as you get the gist of what we're doing. But I am a person who I do love putting attention on one thing, but it's very difficult for me to do. So I'm totally forgiving in that way. What I want to talk about is the purpose and the goals of the course. Writing, as you know, is much more than words on a page. Writing is inextricably connected with your identity as a person, as an academic, as a writer, and as an artist. The most important thing and takeaway for this course is for you to be able to feel that you are more fully expressing your authentic voice, not comparing it to other people, not second guessing it, but really leaning in to those moments of frustration and feeling like you can't do it. It is in those moments that I believe your true voice lies. So rather than trying to avoid that feeling or crush it somehow, you need to lean in because that voice is trying to tell you something. And it might be the fact that you're writing in a more accessible way, or you are trying to figure out how to express something really complex, but it's also really difficult for you to do that in a way that feels both rigorous and like something that most people can understand. The purpose of this course is also for you to find clarity not just in your writing, but in your purpose of writing and the why of your writing. Why did you decide in the first place that writing was going to be part of your life, whether it's part of your job, your studies, or your creative form? It's important to know why you're doing something, otherwise, you get lost. And of course, sharing your story, sharing our stories is critical because storytelling to me is a huge form of resistance. Resistance against all the isms, resistance against whatever normalcy might mean, resistance against all of the oppressive structures that we have to face on a microaggressive level every single day. Sharing your story is powerful and sharing the stories of others. If you're curating other people's stories through data, for example, is also essential. There are some key skills that I want you to develop through the framework. The first is overcoming obstacles. And these obstacles come in many shapes or form, and they come in waves. So I don't want you to just learn the skills to write when you feel like writing, but to learn the skills when you really don't feel like writing, which for many of us is a daily struggle because we all want those long stretches of time where we could just devote ourselves to the practice of writing. And I think you should incorporate those in your writing process, by the way. But what we really need is to reconnect with our purpose and to be able to focus during those short spurts of time that we do have throughout the day to write. How do we enter those spaces without having to do a massive warm up or a massive rehash of what you were writing? And finally, craft a sustainable writing practice. Now, I know you've heard many different things like writing 30 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day. I don't think that works for everyone. And I think for those of you that have tried that and it does, you should keep going. But for those of you who really have tried that and it's just not going anywhere for you, and this could have to do with all kinds of things like ADHD, which many of us have, or with all kinds of competing commitments where, we're told to be in a quiet space where no one will interrupt us. And that's just not possible at times, many times. And so, how do you craft a sustainable writing practice where you are doing your best work at the most opportune time of the day or at the opportune time of the month, week, or year? So, here's the greater goal overall. I want you to end this course feeling more grounded, more inspired, and more confident in your writing. If we can land there at the end of this course, that will definitely be a huge achievement and put a smile on my face. So I hope that you're ready to enter into this process with me. I am super excited to be accompanying you on this journey. And next, what we're going to talk about is what to expect from this course and what you can expect as an outcome. Now we're going to talk about what to expect with this course. I don't know about you, but it always lessens my anxiety when I know from the beginning of a course or any endeavor I'm engaged with to know the roadmap that is going to follow. And so that's what I intend to share with you. So, first, each module, and there's 12 of them total, includes a 45 to 60-minute video, like the one you're watching and hearing right now, where I'll guide you through that week's particular topic. And it's going to be a weekly rollout. So every Saturday, beginning on March 1st, I will release a new module. So March 1st, March 8th, March 15th, and so on until we get to the end of the 12 modules. And the reason why I am doing it week by week rather than showing you all of the content up front is for two reasons. One is a pedagogical reason, which is I do believe that depending on who your audience is, you oftentimes have to adjust your lesson, or your lesson plan, your content for teaching so that it really meets the moment. And so there may be things that I haven't thought about yet that you will bring to my attention in different ways that will inform how the rest of the modules roll out. Now, of course, there are already the topics are already set up to explore the different components of the anchor framework, for example. But I want to make sure that I leave room for pedagogical innovation. The second is really to help build community because as we go one by one, then we can, as a group, really share an experience together that is much different than everybody watching at their own pace, which will happen by the time all of these have been uploaded 12 weeks later. But since you're the first to go through this anchor writing collective with each other, I really want to make it an exquisite experience where you feel connected, where you feel held and seen and heard. The second thing to note is that you'll also have the accompanying workbook to deepen your learning and apply the concept. So you may already have the Anchor workbook because you attended my preview, my 45-minute intro to the Anchor writing framework, which is great. And if you don't have it, then you can find it right here at the bottom of this module. There'll be a document there that has the PDF of the workbook. And so that's going to be critical. It's so important to go through these stages and modules with real intent. And I think having a workbook, I don't know about you, but I love workbooks, is a great way to go. And you know what? If you're willing to do this, rather than printing it out on your printer, which is totally fine, but I would really suggest getting it printed, bound, spiral bound. It's not too expensive, and you can do it like at FedEx, Kinko's, or even through Canva. So for those of you that really use these things as keepsakes in some ways, that would be my suggestion. The third thing to note is that I am super excited to host a weekly 45-minute Q&A session based on that week's module. So each Tuesday throughout the 12 weeks, I will host directly in the platform here for the Anchor Writing Collective and via Zoom link. Think of it as a discussion session. I'll start off the the call with a really short, inspirational chat. And then we'll spend the vast majority of time just hearing your thoughts about the module, asking any questions, also doing some real time coaching. So we'll, someone who volunteers uh, a question or something that I can help them overcome in terms of their writing process. And everyone there will be there to support. So I'm really excited about this. This is something that I've seen done in other communities, and I've just enjoyed it so much. So those will begin on March 4th. That'll be the first Tuesday that I'll host that Q&A, and I am just dying to get started. So that's what you can expect from the course. And next, we are going to discuss the word anchor and why it is so much more than just an acronym. So, why an anchor? Why the acronym anchor? And why the symbol of an anchor? Well, first of all, when I was thinking about how to really frame this, I really wanted a powerful image. And to me, an anchor is just that. It symbolizes stability, it symbolizes grounding, literally, and perhaps more importantly, it holds us steady in storms, in overwhelming moments. You know, wouldn't it be amazing to have an anchor, a spiritual, physical, figurative anchor that we can just throw over our boat of life when things started to get rocky, just so we could, even for a moment, understand what's happening around us. And I think many times when we're writing, it really parallels this whole idea of navigating the sea. Because if you've ever been on a boat, you know that there's a lot of uncertainty and doubt when you're out in open water. I mean, I felt this when I was on a huge cruise ship. I felt this when I've been on a tiny sailboat. It's different, overpowering emotions that come from knowing that, wow, look, I'm in this vast land, in this case of writing, and it feels like you have to get your bearings. You need some direction, you need some steadiness. And that's why I really was attracted to the word anchor. And so, what this anchor promises is that you are going to arrive in a place where your writing feels more steady, your purpose is clearer, your ideas are being nurtured, and your courage is that much more strengthened in sharing your voice or the voice of others. I think about the times in my life, and especially writing, when I really needed an anchor. So, for example, when I was writing my dissertation a million years ago, that happened to also correlate with my first divorce, and I was slated to graduate in May, and I got divorced in December. So I basically had 5-ish months to get this together, even less. And at that moment, of course, I was devastated. And I also felt anchored because I decided very intentionally I'm going to use this dissertation to help myself heal. Now, what did that look like? It looked like a ritual. Every day I would go to a different cafe, have different food. At the time I was in New York, so that was not difficult at all to do. And I would engage in hours of writing. Thank goodness I was on a fellowship, so I could do that. But my point is that this was a period in my life with extreme angst, extreme uncertainty, extreme insecurity. But I used my writing as the anchor to ground me for the rest of that writing time. And, you know, when I think about an anchor, I think about something very, very heavy. And so many times our anchors can be heavy. In other words, it might be a heavy event that leads us to anchor and ground ourselves. So, in that spirit of courage, of being able to produce and create, even and especially during times of distress and despair, let's get started with the writing framework. So before we get started, like for real started, I want us to really reflect on three things. And I am going to share these questions with you, and then I want you to really just pause the video and write your responses. So the first question is, why did you join this course? The second is, what's the biggest challenge you're facing with writing? And the third is, what do you have? What do you hope to accomplish by the end of this 12-week journey? And so take some time to pause the video, write that down. I would love to hear your thoughts when we all get together as a group to debrief and chat about this very first module. In this very first module, we did a few things. One, you learned a little bit more about me and my intentions for the Anchor Writing Framework course. We went over the Anchor Writing Framework, ANCHOR, acknowledge and name your block, nurture your ideas, create a plan, harness momentum, overcome perfectionism, and reflect and revise. I shared the purpose and the goals of this course and also talked about anchor as a symbol and as a figurative metaphor for our writing practice. We talked about what to expect, a weekly 45 to 60-minute video and a weekly 45-minute Q&A session that's live based on that week's module, as well as the workbook. And finally, we went over 3 reflection prompts, and you thought about your whys of joining the course and what you want to accomplish. I am so excited to continue this journey with you. Let's go.